Hi, you guys. I have one more story for you. And if you've never heard Rumpelstiltskin, now you're going to. It is a very long title. Rumpelstiltskin. And if it's such a funny sounding word, and it's so long like this, it's probably going to be important. So log that away. It's something you'll need to know at some point. So remember Rumpelstiltskin. High on a hill, the windmill's sails turned steadily in the breeze. The proud old miller looked down on the village below. There aren't as many pictures in this one, but it's a good story. So, it's about time my daughter was married, he thought, but none of the young men in the village can possibly match her. The next day, the baker's son came to the miller to buy a sack of flour. Spying the miller's beautiful daughter working at her spinning wheel, he asked her father shyly whether he might ask her to marry him. "My girl is far too good for a baker boy," scoffed the miller. "She's the prettiest girl in the village, and she spins the finest thread in the entire kingdom. In fact," he boasted, getting carried away, "she can even spin straw into gold." This was not true, so her dad took it too far. Disappointed, the baker's son heaved his sack of flour over his shoulder, and he trudged home. Back in the village, the baker's son told his mother what the miller had said. "That's incredible," she said. She hurried off to tell the shoemaker's wife, who told the innkeeper, who told the king's huntsman. It wasn't long before word of the girl's extraordinary skill reached the king. See? "A girl who can spin straw into gold," he exclaimed. "This I have to see." And so the miller's daughter was summoned to the castle. "I hear you can spin straw into gold," said the king, "so I'm going to put you to the test. If you fail, your father will be punished." Her father, who got her into this mess. Come on, Dad, be honest. He snapped his fingers. You all know I can't snap very well, but I'll try. Hey, kinda. You guys can snap for me. That's what you do anyway. He snapped his fingers, and a guard whisked the girl away to a small room. It was piled high with straw, and in the middle there was a low wooden stool and a spinning wheel. I'll show you in a minute, but... "Now get to work," ordered the guard. "You have until morning to spin the straw into gold." Then he left, locking the door behind him to make sure the girl didn't cheat. The miller's daughter sat on the stool and sighed. You guys know you're supposed to sigh. She didn't want her father to be punished, but she didn't have a clue how to spin straw into gold. "Oh, what shall I do?" she cried. All of a sudden, a peculiar little man appeared. He had pointed ears, and his spindly legs looked as though they would snap under the weight of his round tummy. "What are you wailing about?" he demanded sharply. See? She's sad. There's the little spindle there. And then, there he is, this funny little man. "What are you wailing about?" "I have to spin all this straw into gold," she replied, "but I don't know how." "Pah, is that all? I can help you," he said, narrowing his eyes. "But what will you give me in return?" "Here," she said, taking off her necklace, "you can have my locket." "That'll do nicely," said the little man, snatching the necklace from her. Grabbing a handful of straw, he set to work. Whir, 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 went the wheel as it began to spin. The miller's daughter watched in amazement as the straw turned into bright gold thread. She tried to see how it was done, but the wheel spun so fast it was all a blur. As she stared, her eyes began to feel heavy, and soon she was asleep. When she woke up, the little man had vanished. But where the straw had been, there were now 20 neatly tied bundles of glittering gold thread. See? Glittering gold thread. The key turned in the lock, and the king came into the room. He could barely believe his eyes when he saw the gold. "You did it," he gasped. Oh, he gasped. You're supposed to... clapping his hands in delight. Then he began to think about all the things he could do if he had even more gold. He's getting kind of greedy here. Come on, king. Be thankful. So the guard took the miller's daughter to another room. It was larger than the first and filled with even more straw. Once more, he ordered her to turn the straw into gold overnight. And once more, he locked her in. No sooner had the key turned in the lock than the odd little man appeared from behind the mound of straw. I can help you, he said, stroking his beard, but that's a lot of straw. It'll take me all night. What will you give me in return? This ring on my finger is all I have left in the world, sighed the girl. I'll take it, he snapped, and he started spinning. Whir, 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 went the wheel all night long. But try as she might, the girl couldn't stay awake to see how it was done. The next morning, the king was thrilled to find 100 bundles of bright gold thread, but it only made him want more. He led the miller's daughter to a third room. It was even bigger than the last, and it was crammed from floor to ceiling with straw. Being king is a costly business, he told her. If you can spin all this, I'll have all the gold I'll ever need, and I'll make you my queen, he promised. She should just say no. He's been making her do all this work. But it's a book. As soon as the girl was alone, the impish little man appeared again. There he is. What do you think he's going to ask this time? You will never guess. But hey, A for effort. Try to guess. Think what he'll ask for. She said her ring was all she had left in the world, so she has to give something she doesn't have right now. He took one look at the vast, that's really big, mound of straw and let out a whistle. Ooh, that's a lot of straw, he said. I can help you, but it's a big job, so it'll cost you. I have nothing left to give you, sobbed the miller's daughter. Well, wheedled the little man, it seems the king has taken a shine to you. If you become queen, then you must give me your firstborn child. The girl's mind was in a whirl. She had no idea what might happen, so reluctantly, even though she didn't want to, she agreed. Satisfied with the deal, the little man set to his task once again. Just as before, the miller's daughter fell asleep, but the little man worked furiously all night long. Whir, 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 went the wheel, faster and faster as the little man raced against the clock. Just as he finished spinning the last bundle of golden thread, the key turned in the lock, and he vanished. The king flung open the door and was dazzled by the great piles of gold that filled the room. Then, standing in the midst of it all, he set eyes on the miller's daughter. Her hair shimmered like spun gold. For the first time, the king noticed how stunningly beautiful she was. He fell instantly in love with her. I'm sure they had many conversations before that happened, but I've been so caught up with greed, I've treated you terribly, he cried. Yeah. If I promise never to make you work at a spinning wheel ever again, will you forgive me and be my queen? The miller's daughter looked into his eyes and saw that he meant every word. I'd love to, was her happy reply. Forgiveness is good. There you go. They were married the very next day. The king spared no expense on the celebrations. There they are. He invited the old miller, the baker, and all the other villagers to the castle, and the feasting lasted long into the night. It was the most lavish wedding anyone in the kingdom could remember. For once, everyone agreed with the miller when he boasted proudly that his daughter was the most beautiful bride there had ever been. The king and his new queen were blissfully happy together. He was a kind and generous husband, and she was devoted to him. The months passed, and the queen gave birth to a beautiful son. She was so besotted with him that she forgot all about the promise she had made to the strange little man. What do you think will happen? Then, one dark winter's night, I want you to notice it said a dark winter's night. If it's a dark winter's night, winter is cold, it's dark. Something bad's probably going to happen, okay? Log that away. The queen was rocking her baby to sleep when she felt an icy breeze. She glanced up to see if the window was open and gasped in horror. There, in front of her, was the spindly little man. "I've come to take what you owe me," he cried, and snatched the baby out of the cradle. The queen was distraught. "I'll give you all the riches of the kingdom. Please don't take my baby," she begged. "Pah," retorted the little man. "I can spend all the gold and silver I'll ever want. Besides, a promise is a promise." The queen wept and pleaded with him until he couldn't take it anymore. "Very well," he snapped. "If you can guess my name in 3 days, you may keep the child. If not, he will be mine. I'll be back tomorrow at midnight." With that, he handed back the baby and vanished into the night. All night and all the next day, the queen sat at her desk, frantically scribbling out a list of all the names she had ever heard, and some she wasn't even sure were real. Then she searched every book in the castle library for even more. By nightfall, there were so many names on her list. Here, I don't even think I showed you the picture. So many names on her list. The queen felt certain that the little man's name must be one of them. At the stroke of midnight, he returned. "I'm back," he announced with a mischievous chuckle. "So, can you guess my name?" What do you think his name is? I know I can't hear what you're saying, but try to think what his name might be. You have heard it before in this story. The queen unfolded her list. "Is your name Casper, or Balthazar, or Melchior?" she began. But to each one, the little man shook his head and said, "That's not my name." One by one, the queen read out every name on her list, but the man kept shaking his head more and more excitedly and repeating, "That's not my name, that's not my name." The queen reached the end of her list and sighed as the little man answered, "That's not my name," yet again. He laughed triumphantly. "Ha, you'll never guess it," he cried, and he vanished into the darkness. That was night 1. But the queen was determined not to be beaten. The thought of losing her son was more than she could bear. So the next day she rode out to every village in the kingdom, asking everyone their names and noting any new ones she came across. That night she came back to the castle with a list of the most outlandish names she had ever heard. Surely it must be one of these, she thought hopefully. At midnight, the little man appeared again. "Go on," he challenged her. "Guess my name." The queen looked down at her new list. "Is your name Short Ribs?" she asked. The little man grinned and shook his head. "That's not my name." He giggled. "Guess again. Is your name Bandy Legs?" "That's not my name either," he chuckled, and his grin grew wider. "Is it Crooked Shanks?" "That's not my name either," he chortled. "Not even close." And his grin grew wider still. By the time the queen had exhausted her list, she was distraught. She still hadn't guessed his name, and the little man was in fits of giggles. Oh, here's a picture. I'm not going to tell you what it is yet, but you can take a guess. I don't know if I would have guessed this, but there he is dancing by a fire. On the 3rd day, so this is her last night, the queen rode out to all the most distant and desolate corners of the kingdom. Desolate means there's not anything really there. It's barren. She asked everyone she met for new names, but she hadn't found a single one. The Heartbroken Queen was about to return to the castle when she spied a thin wisp of smoke rising above some trees. She went closer to investigate, and there she saw a tiny cottage with a bonfire burning outside. To the queen's surprise, the peculiar little man himself was leaping around the fire, singing at the top of his voice. "The queen will never win this game because Rumpelstiltskin is my name," he warbled. The queen wept for joy. "At last I have his name," she thought, and she raced home. And so this time, when the little man appeared at midnight, he found the queen without a list. "So do you give up?" he asked. "Never," retorted the queen. "Is your name Robbie?" she asked him first. The man danced gleefully, hopping from one foot to the other. That's not my name. Guess again, he laughed. Is your name Ricky? Asked the queen. That's not my name either, he crowed, leaping around the room. The queen laughed. Then just maybe, perhaps, could your name possibly be Rumpelstiltskin? She asked. The little man froze. His face turned pink to red to deep, deep plum. It's like dark purple. What? How did you find out? He spluttered. Rumpelstiltskin exploded with rage. Okay, not literally, but he was really mad. He stamped his foot so hard that it went right into the ground, and he stamped the other foot even harder. The angry little man stomped and stamped himself deep into the ground, right up to his middle. The deeper he went, the angrier he became. And the angrier he was, the harder he stomped. Before long, Rumpelstiltskin disappeared into the bowels of the earth, and he was never seen again. The end. And that was obviously a fictitious story. Yes, I used the word fictitious. That's a shout out to you, Alexander. I know you love that word. I'll see you all soon. Bye.